I spent my whole life comparing myself to other people, and I felt inferior, so I would copy them. And I noticed throughout my teenage years, I never really felt a sense of individuality, so that's when I decided to take another turn and go very hyper-individual. But what I didn't know is that I was really pigeonholing myself into one specific idea. And this is really about my journey to becoming who I am and letting myself take inspiration from others whilst not relying on other people for my individuality. Hello Daisy Chains, how are we all doing today? Today we're going to talk about comparison, copying, and individuality and the journey through all of that. Growing up, I was always copying other people and I had basically no self-esteem. And I want to talk about how I went from that to growing my own personality and figuring out who I am as a person and what I like and what I want to do with my life. So I used to live my life very much for other people, and it wasn't only until probably my late teens that I started to realize that that was true. So, have any of you guys, specifically the people who grew up female, had a very, very close friend who was way too old for you? Because I had that, and I know that if that happened to me, that happened to someone else. And that friend showed you a lot of things that they shouldn't have, and you idolized that friend, like idolized them, and tried to be as much as like them as you could. And then looking back, you realize that you wouldn't have done that if you, first of all, didn't feel safe at home, and also if you felt safe in who you are and who you were. And it made me remember that there was a lot of shame. Whenever I tried to do something for myself and be who I was, there was a lot of shame and a lot of looking down and like sneering. So I felt like I had to grow up way too fast. And I did that by copying this other person. That's not to say that I hate that person now or anything. Some of their actions were malicious, and I know they were just a kid at the time too, but as a kid, I was like, I know loads of kids are sponges, but I was like the spongiest sponge, and I was trying to grow up way too fast for my age. I remember being like 10 or 11 and looking at my body like as a kid and wondering like, oh, I don't look hot enough for these people. It's not just that girl's fault. There's a lot of things that went into that, but it's just, I started comparing myself to literal adults. I started comparing myself, a child, to literal adults. And that's where the journey really began, I think, to copying and comparison. In my teenage years, it also started coming along. I'd always find someone that I'd idolize and love so much, and I wanted to be as much like them as possible. And it was just like a cycle, really, and I felt really attached to those people too. So there came a point where I realized, wait, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing, and it only happened when I ended up having an argument with one of my friends. I spend a lot of my time thinking about other people and relying on other people and leaning on other people when I should really be focusing my time on myself and my healing and stop comparing myself so much. That was when I realized I needed to find who I was, my individuality. It all started with clothes. Unfortunately, I did a little bit of a shopping haul in Shein. I'm grateful that that was an option for me at the time, because I don't know what would have happened to me if I continued down the journey of copying. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who have continued down that journey, and it's not pretty, it's quite messy, so I'm really glad that I managed to pull myself out of it. I think in these situations, the biggest thing that you need to have is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the one thing that I would recommend for anyone to grow. Sometimes it can be painful, but it's only painful when you accept that that's the way you are. Because you can change who you are, and you can change the stories that you tell yourself. It just takes a lot of work. Would you rather watch who you are and feel bad about it and not do anything? Or would you rather watch who you are and see what you can do about it and see where all these things came from? I would much rather choose the latter, and that's what I chose. So I was trying to figure out, okay, so like, who am I? I knew that I was very much into like crystals and all the spirituality stuff, but I hadn't really delved into it quite as much as I have now, specifically the healing part of it, and the healing part of it is honestly like my favorite part of it. I did start getting into all the shadow work, the healing girly stuff, and that really helped me, but it was also really hard, and I just didn't have the patience for it, so I kind of put it on a back burner and continued feeding the negative habits. including comparison and coping. And I still do it. I still compare myself to people. Obviously, I don't copy people. And I'm actually trying to find a fine line between copying and inspiration. I have so many inspirations. I don't want to idolize anyone, but I have so many inspirations. And sometimes I'm like wondering, wait, am I copying this person? These things like are quite difficult. It's not easy to figure these things out when you grow up with no knowledge in emotional intelligence. And I'm still learning things. So I think that when people shame people who are still learning things like this, that's not okay. You shouldn't shame anyone. If someone's trying, no matter how old they are, no matter what part of their journey they're at, it's amazing that they're trying and they should be celebrated for trying. Obviously, there are some things that you need to know at a certain age, and that is the responsibility of the people around you, and also your brain matures as well, so there are some things that you kind of naturally learn about anyway. But there are some things that also you need to be taught, and sometimes if you don't grow up in the environment that's perfect for you, you pick up some negative things. It's pretty impossible to go through life without any hiccups, and life would be really boring if we went through life without any hiccups. Anything can be trauma, it just depends on how you deal with it. And I was never taught to deal with things in a healthy way. I was never really taught how to deal with things. A lot of the time it was just kind of avoidance, and that's what I do now. Yeah, so I started exploring my personal style. I knew that I liked the hippie stuff, and then there came a point where I was, dressing all hippie-ish, and then I was like, no, I need to get even more hippie stuff because my stuff isn't hippie enough. So then I fell into a whole other rabbit hole about having to be really individual, and then I realized that I was being too specific, too rabbit hole-y. I was going way too much down the hippie stuff, and now that I look back on it, being a hippie isn't about buying clothes that look like hippie clothes. Being a hippie isn't even about your style in general. Being a hippie is about like respecting the earth and respecting nature, and buying from Shein is not respect for nature. Not to say that I'm disappointed, because like I said, everyone has their own journey and everyone learns, but it's a funny contradiction. It's a funny contradiction, young Daisy. You can actually see that era of me on my YouTube channel before I came back. That was only like a year or two ago now. Oh my god. Yeah, I have done a lot of growing the past few months. A lot of growing and a lot of realizations, and I want to take a second to be proud of myself because that takes a lot of work, but it's also just kind of a part of life, and it's just a part of like maturing, I guess, as well. I feel like when you're forced to mature really early, you end up kind of going immature later in life, and I'm trying to find like a perfect balance between that, because I want to honor my inner child and I want to be a little silly goofy sometimes, but I also need to be emotionally mature, and I can't let my problems affect other people, and I can't let my problems affect me too much either. It's really about finding the perfect balance between feeling your feelings and honoring your feelings and not reacting based on how you feel. Take some time, be alone, cool down. Now I'm just thinking that this sort of stuff should be in like the school curriculum. I don't know if it is or not, because I didn't really pay attention in school. Maybe that's a part of my problem, but I think that they really need to teach things about like emotions and how to regulate yourself in school. And for a while I was just kind of stumbling through life. I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening right now. So I ended up having a time of isolation. Around this time I left school as well. I left school early. I didn't do the leaving cert. And then I ended up going in and doing an art course, I think. I did quite a bit of healing that year. And then I went back on it because the depression took over. Yay. The past couple months I learned so much about myself, and it was only then that I realized and I had gratitude for the time that I spent alone, because I just realized so much about myself. First of all, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one stereotype or whatever. I can be a spiritual girly who plays Overwatch. I can be a girl who loves natural eating and natural foods. But I can also have some takeout every once in a while. These things, you don't have to be one specific type of person. You can be whoever you want to be. Paige from Barbie's book. She was an astronaut, she's like a fashion designer, she's an actress, she's like a policewoman, she's like all these different things. You can do that as well. And that realization was so powerful. And realizing that I just need to stop comparing myself to other people. And not just my personality, not just my interests, but also my body. Like, I still have issues with this, but I'm always looking at people who are more on the thin side and trying to look at them and like be like, no, my body isn't like theirs, I'm not pretty, I'm not perfect. In reality, no one cares about what you look like, and I can guarantee you the majority of people have body image issues. It's so common in our society, and it's so normalized, and it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Even growing up, you hear your parents talking about themselves that way. At the time, it's just like, oh, that's whatever, that's just how they talk about themselves. But then later on, as you grow older and mature, you realize that that wasn't okay, the way they were talking about themselves, and that they're very hurt by society and by the tabloids and everything. Like, society and beauty standards, videos coming out about that, these things are really, really damaging to people's minds and to how they view themselves. And I think specifically social media, magazines, the news, all those things, celebrities, and I don't want to put shame on plastic surgery, do whatever you want to do, but a lot of the time it's like idolized in a way, I guess, or glorified, plastic surgery. And then specifically men who are under influence of the patriarchy, and women too, they can be under the influence of it as well, but they're like looking at porn and stuff, and like they're seeing all these women who have like gotten a lot of surgeries, and they think that that's what's normal, especially when they grow up watching that. Like, boys are watching that, like little kids are watching that stuff, and I used to watch that stuff as well, and that's probably where a lot of my issues come from. But it's really horrible, and it's internet access needs to be looked at. I know it's kind of like a quick fix, but it's really dangerous. The online world is so beautiful in so many ways, but in so many other ways it is so damaging, and it's so horrible. It really depends on what side of the internet you're in, but it's so easy to end up slipping into the other side that can hurt and damage and destroy. So please remember that. And even if you're an adult like watching this and you don't have any kids, remember that for yourself as well. It's so easy to end up slipping into the other side of the internet. And if you see anything, even one thing that makes you feel like crap about yourself, make sure to click off that immediately. Follow all the people that you like. And back to my advice about the pigeonholing thing. If you identify as like a spiritual person, for example, remember that it's okay to have non-spiritual interests, hobbies, likes, and you don't have to believe in every single thing that the spiritual people say either. I feel like, oh, what was it, like 2020? I was getting into like the starseed stuff, which I kind of regret, but I found it really interesting because I love aliens, so I was into it. The community around starseeds and like the conspiracy theorists, I started getting into it because I liked the manifestation stuff and I was kind of starting my spiritual journey. Then I got into the starseed stuff. A lot of people who were like pro starseeds, whatever, they're also pro-Trump, anti-LGBT people, and racist. So they're all just basically conservatives. And I knew that I was completely against those things, but I was still following the starseedy things, and it was only when I realized that starseeds were also fucked up that I was like, no, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot argue with these people about like right from wrong. They're clearly completely warped in their own heads, and it's okay for me to be a spiritual person and to be a good person as well, because let's face it, if you are homophobic, you are a bad person, in my opinion. I don't care what your excuse is. If you're anti-gay and anti-inclusivity, like, no, that's just no. I gotta have a baseline with people, and it's, if you are inclusive of every single person on this earth, we can be friends. If you're respectful to every single person on this earth, we can be friends. But if you are homophobic, racist, transphobic, ableist, we cannot continue talking, because that's not okay. And if you are one of those people, then please click off my channel, because this is not a safe space for you. So yeah, I was just kind of realizing that, yeah, I can pick things out that I like about spirituality and leave the rest. And there are small communities that are kind of screwed up in my mind, but I can leave those, and I can pick up, okay, I like manifestation, but I also like witchcraft. I like doing candle spells. Okay, I'm allowed to do manifestation and witchcraft. I like Reiki as well, and I like doing tarot. You can pick up so many different things from so many different places. Make sure that it is open culturally though. You don't want to do any closed practices or anything like that. But you can pick up so many things from so many different places that you're allowed to, and work with them and be into them and be interested in them. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one box. You can like so many different things. And it's so important to like so many different things as well. And it's important to surround yourself with a diverse group of people too, to get used to the idea that just because I don't look like this beautiful woman doesn't mean that I'm not a beautiful woman. I'm just as beautiful as she is. She may be on the thinner side, but she's still so beautiful. And I am on the bigger side, but I'm still beautiful. Just because I'm bigger doesn't mean that I am ugly. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that this is how my genetics are. People make assumptions that bigger people eat horribly and blah 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 and treat themselves bad. That's true for some, but for others it's just genetics. So I don't think assumptions should be made generally about everyone. Once again, getting back to the individuality thing, everyone is individual. Everyone has their own life stories, their own mental health needs, their own face, their own body, their own interests, their own likes and dislikes, their wants, not wants, everything. Everyone is so completely unique and different, and that's beautiful. And I used to have such a hang up about my face as well, but my face is made up of so many different people that loved each other in the past, and that's beautiful. I can see my ancestors in my face, and I can see my ancestors in my body, and that's a beautiful thing. I am made up of all of the people who created me. And that's just, it's interesting. I'm made of stardust too. You're made of stardust. Remember that. It's so important to remember these things. Being an individual person is amazing, and you don't need to only associate yourself with one type of person. Surround yourself with loads of different people, a diverse group, and make sure that you have lots of different interests as well. Hobbies, interests are so important. And take time for yourself every single day. Do at least one thing that's going to make you feel good, and remember that different things work for everybody. Someone might say, oh, this is the one true thing that you need to follow. You don't need to follow that one true thing if it doesn't work for you. Follow something else. Like, for example, trying to be healthy and fitter. Trying to be healthier. You look into the world of exercise and people are like, no, you have to do push-ups, you have to do squats, you have to do these types of gym exercises in order to be healthy. But no, you don't have to do those things. There's so many different options. You can do swimming, you can do yoga, you can go on a run, you can do some cycling. There's so many different options for so many different things. Remember not to try and copy another person. Find all of your interests. If you find someone who happens to be really similar to you, that's amazing. And that gets on to my next point, actually. If you're constantly looking for people to validate you and to be on your side, and if you're just constantly looking for friends, you're not going to find those friends by hating yourself and avoiding who you are. And you're definitely not going to find those friends by pretending you're someone else and by trying to copy other people. That's just going to leave you feeling absolutely horrible at the end of the day. So I really encourage you to embrace your own individuality and find out who you truly are and walk in that and bathe in that. And eventually you, as yourself completely, will attract the right people. It's not about changing yourself so that those people like you. It's about being yourself so the people who are right for you will come to you, and that will happen. And it's about opening yourself up to loads of different people, battling your social anxiety and talking to people as much as possible, and just being the best human that you can be, complimenting people, helping people as much as you can. Alright, guys, this was a very packed video. I hope you like the videos like this. I have a whole schedule planned for August. If you're interested in that, you can check out my Instagram. Actually, before we go, I wanted to do a card of the day. This is something that I want to start integrating into my videos as much as I can. So basically, if you have any questions, or even if you just kind of want to know what your day's going to be like, or just like, can you give me a guidance card, whatever it is, I'm going to pull a card for you. And it's going to be the answer to your question, or just how your day is going to go, or something to keep in mind. Okay guys, we have clearing. Remove energy blockages by clearing out unwanted emotional and material clutter. I've gotten into this before, but cleaning is actually a really huge part of my self-care routine. So if you are looking at a messy room right now, or looking at a messy phone screen, looking at yourself in the mirror, you might be a little bit dirty or something. You might want to go shower, freshen up, clean around a little bit, clear everything out, because when you let things build up, that's when stagnancy can happen. So make sure to always clear your space and let go of things as much as you can. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you in some sort of way. And if you're not already subscribed and you like my content, definitely go ahead and subscribe. I like talking a little bit about stuff like this. I love talking about looking inside myself and seeing any issues that I have that I might be able to talk about and help with someone else once I work them out. So if you're interested in self-help, witchcraft, spirituality, nature, cinematography, stuff like that, artisticness, I really advise you to stick around. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video.